If you're fascinated in architecture, then you've definitely heard of Frank Lloyd Wright. If you're an Australian architecture enthusiast, you've likely heard of Murcutt and Richard Leplastier, who are often paired together for sharing similar design values amongst the world's best. Another architectural legend, Harry Siedler, who almost convinced Australian design to adopt Bauhaus or Harvard Modernist style for the masses, but we Aussies are a bit stubborn in our design thinking ways. The next big name on the list is Bruce Rickard. I hear you asking, who the heck is Bruce Rickard? The consensus amongst older generation architects is he is on par with the previously listed architects, but I bet most of you listening have never heard of him. When I ask senior architects who this is, they express admiration and knowledge of his designs. Back in the day, they would go on excursions to see his work. I then asked architects and graduates around my age and younger to discover most of us have no idea who he is. His works are not being taught at our universities. It doesn't help that there is little information about Bruce Rickard online, especially on YouTube, where many go to for information, as we are a generation of visual learners. It is almost secretive. I don't know why that may be, but I feel I need to contribute something to this discussion. The best resource on his work I can find is a 2018 publication, A Life in Architecture, showcasing amazing work that you can't really find anywhere on the internet. Please excuse the images quality that I'm going to share from this publication. I simply can't find photography anywhere else, which shows what a great buy this book is. And no, I have not been asked to advertise the publication. It's just that without it, I wouldn't be able to make this video demonstrating what excellent Aussie architects did not so long ago. Bruce Rickard is a late 1900s Sydney-based architect and landscape architect who designed more than 80 family homes around his suburb of inhabitancy, Roseville, which happens to be a beautiful suburb of Victorian-era Queen Anne arts and crafts and Federation Heritage listed homes, priding themselves on beautiful landscaping elements. He was one of the longest-serving chapter councillors with the Australian Institute of Architects, serving 16 years, and a founder member of the Australian Institute of Landscape Architects. Murcutt, Leplastier, and Rickard uncoincidentally share design priorities as a response to the Australian context, however take slightly different focuses and wording to achieve their designs. A common principle between these top architects is, as Murcutt puts it, touching the ground lightly, specifically having a building's structural footings piled into the ground to suspend the ground floor slab above the earth. This makes overall construction easier, but not cheaper, as you no longer need to cut into the rock or worry as much about waterproofing between the earth and your building. It also allows water to simply run beneath a building, hence it does not disturb existing waterway movements. These architects care a lot about framing the view, and even more so about how their building sits in relation to the existing landscape. For instance, I noticed the application of the flat roof where there is significant topography and curvy or high-pitched roofs where there is flat topography, possibly for visual difference. Both roof types are expensive to build in Australia as our construction needs to account for heavy rainfall, flooding, and fireproofing. Both roofs can achieve what is commonly referred to as passive design. I am proud to say I took a course taught by Murcutt and can share his unwavering stance of applying fundamentals to create passive design. Passive design is where a building maintains a comfortable standard of living without the intervention of electrical appliances such as air conditioning and heaters. It reduces a building's carbon footprint and helps justify the embodied carbon produced to construct a building. On that point, did you know on average, Australians spend more money heating their homes than cooling it? Australian architects cherish expressive movements through a typically 1.5 times void, rather than the American double void, which ironically Frank Lloyd Wright resisted at the residential level, and instead has infamously low ceiling heights to inspire intimacy. Low ceilings and their structural roofing may be an economical construction decision as Aussie roofs are built at a lower angle than areas needing to shed off snow. Coincidentally, lower ceilings also mean a room requires less energy to heat or cool it, simply because there's less space. Having variations in ceiling heights also directs where hot air is going. You'll typically find vents, louvers, or whirlybirds at the highest point of a large room. For so-called modern homes that have no sympathy to energy efficiency, you'll likely find the best place for aircon at this highest point too. Prized Aussie homes limit how much space is used for heating and cooling. This 1.5 times void seems to be the sweet spot for our successful mid to late 1900s architects. Yet still, Australian architectural homes often suffer from thermal bridging failure, such as single glazed windows and large air gaps between thresholds. This lets the desired internal air flow to wherever you do not want it to. Our prominent examples designed 50 years ago suffer from no such problem. They likely utilize large thermal massing, which is a fancy word of saying thick walls, orientated to the sun, external shading, and wide roof overhangs, or high insulation efficiency. Some of these decisions aren't important to foreign countries as their sun is not as harsh. International architecture's priority used to be letting sun in or keeping cold out. Since the popularity of international style, you'll see wonderful details of floor-to-ceiling windows without awnings in modernist homes, which is undesirable in Australia. When floor-to-ceiling windows are used without awnings in Australia, I guarantee there is a high-powered air conditioner to compensate for the insane amounts of solar energy this brings in. Excellent Australian architecture utilizes the highlight and clerestory windows, allowing slithers of light deep into the building without bringing unnecessary solar loads in with it. To the southern orientation of a building, architects will typically bring in diffused light, ideal for gallery or studio spaces, for the soft lighting effect. In Australia, you will rarely see skylights into a house because the hottest seasons are when the sun is at its highest in the sky. Fun fact, Bruce Rickard never built models of his buildings for himself or clients. He only used sections and drawings, and lots of them. This justifies my personal hatred of the laborious and wasteful reality of building physical models, especially now that we have powerful software to position models within their environment, rather than looking at how your building sits onto cardboard topography. Another shared principle is material honesty. That is, minimizing the number of materials and showing a brick is a brick, wood is wood, etc. Being material efficient does not always mean it is the cheap alternative, however. Look at Peter Zumthor's masterful application of simplified honest material palettes. Where applied successfully, strong architecture follows. Sometimes, in my opinion, this can go too far. For example, unfinished interior brick is not everyone's style, nor is it practical from a cleaning point of view, especially in front of a kitchen stove. Material honesty does mean less time, effort, and therefore money is expended on finishing a house. An interesting point on material, despite what many companies say, the Construction Index magazine posted a study claiming gyprock, otherwise called plasterboard or gypsum, is highly carbon intensive. Given how commonly this material is specified, this is something to take seriously. To put that into perspective, the study estimated that gypsum plasterboard causes approximately 3.5% of UK's greenhouse gas emissions. What was Rickard's design style? From my perspective, a dominating toxic trait of Australian architectural adoring fans and academics is the desire to place architects into design tribes. Is an architect Bauhaus, international, Australian style? Specifically, Australians once cared greatly whether something is classified under Sydney School or Melbourne School. This used to be important because it determined which side of the snobbery you fall into. The young architects are becoming more disinterested in the almost irrelevant debate as our cities grow larger and more homogeneous. Yet, even when this debate was at its strongest, Rickard sought dissociation from the tribalism. When asked about which school Rickard designed under, he responded, "It is difficult to know what the Sydney School is." According to Jack Taylor's Bruce Rickard in Organic Australia, Rickard was against the notion that a singularly classified Sydney school existed, as he felt the styles were too divergent and was only labelled so for the convenience of critics. Rickard felt that the main linking element was a simple aversion to European modernism in preference of a more vernacular form. Are you a fan of Bruce Rickard's architecture? Please let me know in the comments section if this video has taught you something about architecture. It is my first time attempting to write a casual essay for this format, so if you found it interesting, I'll put in the time to make more for our casual learning. Thank you so much for watching.